This week I'm joined by Washington Examiner commentary editor Conn Carroll. And Conn, you wrote the cover story in this week's issue of the magazine looking at red state governance versus blue state governance, how blue cities are often poorly governed. You were inspired a bit by a chart that's regularly published by Brookings, the
Yes.
liberal think tank. Walk us through a little bit about what you decided to write about.
Sure. So you have this chart that Brookings puts out after every presidential election, right? And the point of this chart is to try to undercut whenever a Republican wins, to say, look, all of the GDP in the country is really produced by the smart, hip, progressive, democratic areas, right? And it's the backwards, rural, red areas that have just won the election. I mean, they're going to enforce their backward ways on us.
Right.
But when you look at the chart, what you notice is that all of the biggest counties, and it's done at the county level, are really just cities. And so what the chart really is showing is that most of the GDP produced in the country is produced in cities. And that makes sense since most of the population of the country is in cities. But when you step back and you look at if you were to do that same chart by state, you would see a very different story. Because then you would see big states like Texas and Florida and Utah all producing tons of GDP versus, California and New York and some higher power ones, but it would be much more even. But when you look at the cities that are in blue states, those cities are falling behind, and it's the red cities that are really succeeding.
You mentioned that all the cities virtually are blue cities, and that's the first standard response people come up to when you make this argument. They say, oh, but all these cities that you mentioned have Democratic mayors, but it's more complicated than that.
No, I mean, well, it is pretty much true that they all do. In fact, the one that proves the rule is Dallas's mayor, Eric Johnson, because he was actually elected first as a Democrat before turning Republican, right? But blue state cities don't set a lot of the policies that drive economic growth, right? They don't set energy policy. They don't set mostly, they can add on minimum wage, but they usually set at the state level.
Sure. And
so much of the regulations, environmental laws and labor laws, those are all set at state level, not at the city level, right? So when you step back and you look at, just look at the census list of the top 10 biggest cities in the country, right? You have New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia. These are all blue cities in blue states, okay? And then if you look at the cities that are in red states, again, all basically Democratic cities, but they're run in red states. You have Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Phoenix, Jacksonville. Those states are all growing immensely, adding tons of population and jobs, while the Democratic states that are mentioned are all either declining in population or stagnating. You look at New York and Los Angeles. New York and Los Angeles have actually lost population over the last 10 years, all while the red states, as I mentioned, have all been growing by 10, 15, 20%.
So, and of course, all Democratic mayors aren't necessarily created equal, and there has been a trend in some large blue cities and blue states to elect particularly progressive mayors. And on some quality of life issues, the mayor can have a pretty big impact on the city council, no?
Yeah, I mean, some are worse than others. My hometown of Oakland has been going through a lot of trouble. They've had the last mayor that they had was recalled because of a allegedly kickback scam, and of course you have other states like other cities like Los Angeles mayors. Karen Bass has her problems, but really the point of the article is that the mayors themselves aren't really setting the problem. Is that I lay out these like three, as I call them, symptoms, which kind of drive the loss of population and the cause of stagnation in these blue cities. Their affordability, both on the housing and utilities level. There's job growth. And then there's what I call, like public order. The fact that when you go to like a CVS, of course, everything's behind a plastic racks. That just, shows that public order is declining. But those are really just the symptoms. The main cause is government unions, okay? And this is set at the state level, right? So when President Roosevelt signed the Wagner Act in 1935, he specifically said, we should not extend collective bargaining to government employees, right? Because then you just have the government basically negotiating with itself. But then starting with New York in the 1960s, New York passed a law that allowed government unions on the state level, and then that was copied by Illinois and California. And so ever since then, you've just had this running experiment where we can look and see that when government union or government employees are allowed to collective bargaining, you just see taxes go up, spending go up, of course, salaries and benefits go up, but services don't get any better. In fact, they get worse because of the government unions are eating up all of the resources that are needed to make efficient government services.
And so on the flip side of that, your recipe for success for these cities would be to have the opposite policies.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think the opposite policy would be obviously to get rid of the collective bargaining for government unions. I mean, just unfortunately, that doesn't happen a lot going that way, but you can see it going this way. So Virginia, was a red state for decades, long time. And then just in the past 10 years or so, it first became purple and then reliably blue. And it wasn't until 2001 that you had the first opportunity for a blue state governor with a blue state legislature to give collective bargaining to government employees in Virginia. And what happened immediately in Fairfax County, one of the wealthiest counties in the country, it went from always being the black, budget surpluses to budget deficits by hundreds of millions of dollars just within 2 years. That's how quickly government unions can destroy a community.
Thank you, Conn.
Absolutely.
If you're watching us on YouTube, you can read Conn's full article by clicking here at our digital magazine.